Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Q&A, so let me get my hat on. And let's get to this first question. Alright. Isn't it weird that most harmful foods are delicious? Shouldn't body have a defense mechanism against this and make them taste like shit to protect itself, just as it does when someone overtrains and feels fatigued as hell? No, not at all. The reason a lot of foods that we have developed over the years, we eat them is because they taste delicious. We've learned to modify things in a way that makes them more delicious in a way that's favorable to our palate. What people need to understand, before agriculture, before the modern world, malnutrition was basically the leading cause of death. Alright, not necessarily being eaten by predators, not even necessarily wars and conflicts. Those things all added up. Violence was a big factor. Infection's a big factor, but the leading cause of death for tens of thousands of years, and this is still often the leading cause of death of animals in the wild. Okay? It's malnutrition. Malnutrition. So accordingly, we are designed to find the most calorically dense foods that have the things that we most need to survive, and that's calories. Alright, generally speaking, what's calorically dense? Foods really high in fat, foods really high in sugar, anything that's sweet, and oftentimes things that are salty. Why salty? Because we need extra salts to survive. We need salt to survive. Salt deficiency when you're in the wild and sweating and moving around a lot and have an active lifestyle can actually kill you. This whole problem with salt that we have and high blood pressure and everything is due to people being sedentary and overweight. You need sodium. You need salt. And salt stimulates appetite. If you eat salty foods, you're more likely to eat more, okay, because it makes you thirsty also. So these are foods that stimulate appetite. Alright? Well, in the modern world, we have foods that we didn't necessarily have access to, and we have enough abundance. That we can easily overeat, and it's obesity. It's obesity that is what's killing people. This is what makes these foods bad for us, and oftentimes just the sheer empty calories of the foods. But when you think about it, what fatty foods did you have in the wild? Maybe a bulked up animal, nuts. All right, nuts. Sweet stuff would have been whatever fruit you could find. Or if you got really lucky, honey. Honey was probably the sweetest thing before the modern world that any human being had ever tasted. And we still love honey and still harvest honey to this day. But that is the cause. That's what's going on. The foods that are going to make you eat the most, that are easiest to eat in the largest amounts, we crave those to keep ourselves from starving and getting malnourished, because that is for almost all of human history, and even the history of other animals going even further back. That's the way it's been. Starvation and malnutrition are extreme risks. They're their highest cause of death. So anything we can do to avoid getting malnourished, avoid starving, our body is trained to do that. Not trained, but that's what's in our genes. That's what's in us biologically, is to prevent us from starving to death. So that's why we crave these foods. And we've created foods in the modern world that combine those things together. Really salty, fatty foods, right? Or really sweet foods. Those are the things we tend to overeat. Well, those are the things that we need, that we should crave if we want to not starve to death. It's just that we have the opposite problem with all the abundance. In today's world, that it's easy to get excessively fat. That's actually a bigger risk now than starving to death. And it's because of our genetic factors of craving these foods combined with virtually unlimited access. And now that kills us, unfortunately. Ironic in a way. Alright, next question. What is your opinion on block periodization? Keeping in mind, of course, that none of us are elite level lifters and are not trying to make money, would it be beneficial for the average lifter to still utilize these type of advanced methods? Also, what is your opinion on periodization in general? People talking about DUP is best, linear is best, conjugate is best, etc. Like they're mutually exclusive. Mix these kind of methods can still be utilized properly. Opinion. Alright guys, my stance on it, I think most people need to run linear progression And then when they can no longer make gains from linear progression, they can go to linear block periodization, or they can just run much slower linear progression models. I've created online multiple times for you guys examples of less advanced, just slow linear progression, such as taking the old school method of just taking a weight you can do 5 reps with and adding reps when you're able to, and you get to either 8 reps or 10 reps, however you want to do it. You add weight to the bar and slowly repeat the process over months and years. Okay, that's still linear progression. Most people, block periodization is going to be best. Why? Because for single sport athletes, block periodization, and they don't have to be elite, this is used in college level athletes all the time. Block periodization is the best way to gain muscle and strength in your off season. All right. I don't think the average person really needs to use, but these are more advanced, daily undulating periodization, concurrent training, things like that. Quite frankly, I don't think anyone but elite athletes need to waste their time with that. And the athletes that get the most benefit from this are people who don't have an off season, a clearly defined in season and off season. Powerlifting is an example of that, because some powerlifters compete 4, 5, 6 times a year throughout the year. They don't have an off season. Like a lot of the West Side guys. That's why they came up with that method. They benefit from that. And in-season athletes benefit from that. The average person doesn't need to train multiple endeavors concurrently. They don't need to stay in-season peak year-round. They're just focused on making their gains slowly over time. And I still think either a slow linear progression, or if they want to be slightly more advanced and maybe get a small advantage through some periodization method, linear block periodization is going to produce the best gains for people year after year, just the casual lifter. Because again, they're not elite lifters, they're not elite athletes with all these in-season, out-season problems, or being continually in-season. They don't need to worry about those things. So therefore, I think concurrent style training for most people is a waste. For people who compete in multiple endeavors, concurrent training seems to be ideal. Like hybrid type athletes, it's probably the best thing they could do. But that's not the average fitness enthusiast who's just trying to be big, strong, and in shape. Alright, next question. Jason, generally after a big meal during the day, I easily get into the rest and digest state, and it's quite easy for me to take a nap. However, if I eat a bigger meal shortly after going to bed in the evening, I think you mean shortly before, it seems to have the opposite effect. It makes it harder to fall asleep. Thoughts for why it might be the case? Probably your food selection. It's your food selection. The reason you get sleepy from eating a big meal is the carbohydrates cause you to release melatonin, your sleep hormone. In fact, there's enough data showing that carbs before bed actually cause you to produce more growth hormone while you sleep, because they increase melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, which actually is beneficial to you. So actually, if anything, a little bit of carbs before bed can help you sleep. The problem you're running into is that you might be eating a lot of fat. A meal high in fat is going to cause your GI tract to work harder. It takes longer to break it down. Your stomach gastric emptying rate is going to be slower. Had you just eaten some potatoes or rice with a little bit of lean protein, or just something starchy, you probably wouldn't have these problems. It has to do with the gastric emptying times keeping you awake, because your stomach is busy working because you ate something that's slow to digest. That's probably what's causing it. It's your food selection. So if you really want to eat something before bed, just stick to mostly carbs and maybe a little bit of protein. Keep everything low fat, not excessively high in fiber, and that's what I would recommend before bed if you want to get some sleep benefits from it, because you actually want that sleepy state you're getting. It's purely from the carbohydrates. That's what's causing it. And again, increasing melatonin. Melatonin is a good thing. Melatonin is a great thing for rest and recovery, particularly for someone who's training hard. So yeah, just pure carbs before bed. Don't eat a bunch of fat before bed. That's what's causing you to probably lay awake, or just eating such an excessive amount that you have a slow gastric emptying rate. All right, next question. Reactive hypertrophy signals 1 to 2 days after initial training. So for example, doing some heavy leg work, squatting and leg pressing, then the following days doing a couple of light sets just to reduce inflammation and immobility, does this reactivate the growth signal? Depends on how light. Depends on how light. And quite frankly, if you're training correctly, you don't have to necessarily go and do that, because a lot of more advanced full body programs just have lighter days in the middle anyways. You only have 2 real heavy days, and you usually have 1 lighter day if you're training that way. Well, that's enough to re-signal it. So as far as re-signaling hypertrophy, it depends on, did you work hard enough or with enough volume, if you didn't work that hard with what you did, to cause protein breakdown? Did you cause protein disruption in the muscle tissue? And if you did enough work to cause tissue disruption in the protein, and you could do that with some real high rep lightweight sets, then yeah, you're going to re-stimulate muscle protein synthesis. All right, and you're going to re-stimulate the gains from the heavier workout as far as the restructuring, because again, you're reinforcing that. So you could do it that way, but it comes down to if you do enough volume. If you're coming in and you're doing the same reps, like let's say you did a heavier day and you did, I don't know, 8 to 10 reps, because I don't know what your training looks like. I don't know if you're doing triples or 5 rep sets or whatever, and you come in and you mean light by doing half the weight. No, you're not going to re-stimulate much of anything. Maybe a little, maybe for detraining purposes if you're on a deload. But as far as actual making real gains, if you haven't overreached, probably not. But if you only reduce the weight by about 20%, yeah, you'll re-stimulate through tissue disruption. Meaning if you did 10 rep sets with 70% of your max and you cut that another 20%, a day or 2 later, you'll probably be fine. That'll probably help you grow. But again, you should have this all structured into your normal training anyways, because again, most full body training or even higher frequency training, you either your individual days aren't so excessive that it's a recovery problem anyways, or you have lighter days to balance this out and respark protein synthesis and motor unit learning. All right, next question. Is there any merit to bulking to a desired, realistically healthy weight and then recompositioning? Man, when I read the question, I totally missed the realistic healthy, so I've got to think about how I'm going to answer this one different now. Because what I was going to say... Oh, wait, I missed part of the question. I renumbered it wrong. I gapped it. Bulking to say 200 pounds and then maintaining calories while upping workload and volume to grow muscle while losing fat at the desired rate. The body that counts as excess calories during a recomposition like this, doesn't it? Tricky question, though, because you said to a relatively healthy weight, which means you're not going to be real fat. Recompositioning is a lot easier when you carry a lot more body fat. If you stayed at a healthy body fat, recompositioning is going to take longer. It's going to be more difficult. And the other thing to consider here is that you bulked, right? So you're talking about maybe you went to 200 pounds. And maybe you gained 15 extra pounds of fat. So you might have gone up to 20% body fat. Well, if you're wanting to lose 10 pounds of body fat and you've already trained a full year, let's say you finished out most of your noob gains. At the end of that year, you're now starting to branch into the intermediate phase. How long do you think it's going to take you to gain 10 pounds of muscle completely natural? Let's say you've already gained 15 pounds of muscle through your noob gains. Another 10 pounds, you're not going to do that in the next year. You're not going to do that in the next year. So basically, you're looking at a 2 or 3 year recomposition. That's a real long time, because that's what it's going to take you to gain that much muscle. So you are looking at, when you talk about recompositioning, if you have 10 pounds to shift, it's going to take you years to do that. If you've already finished out your noob gains, you've been training more than a year, it's going to take you years to gain that 10 pounds of muscle, which also means concurrently, if you're staying at the same body weight, it's going to take you years to lose that 10 pounds of fat. For a lot of people, it might be easier to simply cut. For just health and people who don't want to keep bulking and cutting, it might behoove you to cut to a body fat close to your desired body fat that you think is made sustainable year-round, that's healthy, and then work on recompositioning from there a little bit, rather than going up to say 200 pounds. Because for most people, you're 5'9" and you're completely drug-free, 200 pounds is pretty big. So you're going to have a substantial amount of body fat at 200 pounds, and that's the reality. That's why BMI works for natural. Some people say, oh, BMI doesn't work. Well, Yeah, it does. BMI for naturals versus guys who've been using a bit of gear is totally different. If you're completely natural, BMI isn't accurate as people think it is. So just keep that in mind. So again, you don't want to be in a situation where you have 10 pounds of recomposition after you finish your noob gains and think that you're going to do so in like 6 months or a year. It's just not going to happen. That's going to be a very, very, very long process. All right, next question. Does someone who has an active job like construction, mechanic, mailman, movers, lawnman, etc. have to do cardio, or is the job they have already taken care of their cardio? If someone with a desk job will have to do cardio to get the benefits of it. It depends on how much benefit you're trying to get. Yeah, if you mow lawns, push a lawnmower around for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, yeah, you're getting less cardio. If you're a mailman who has to walk for hours, every day, you're getting less cardio. Yeah, you're getting the benefits of cardio. Humans thrive on fairly high volumes of low intensity cardio. All right, that is actually what we're best designed to do. We thrive in that environment. So if that's the sort of job you have to where you are literally on your feet walking, particularly if you're carrying anything, either pushing even a lawnmower, a big mail bag, that adds up. Yeah, if you're doing that for hours every day, you probably don't need any cardio. Probably don't need any cardio. Other than maybe a little bit of GBP work every now and then to get the upper threshold stuff. You're probably decent. Not saying you couldn't do cardio and benefit from it, but you're not going to benefit very much from a health perspective. From an athletic perspective, you might. From a health perspective, probably not. You're not going to see much in the way of benefit, at least not compared to the sedentary person. So good question. Yeah, if you have a job like that, particularly the one that struck me is like the mailman or the guy who mows lawns, you're literally walking and either pushing a fairly light object or carrying something for 3+ hours a day or 8 hours a day. Oh yeah, you've already got your endurance cardio in. You already got your endurance cardio in. You probably already have the training. You could start marathon running and you'd be decent at it in a few months. You already have basically your low intensity cardio base built. You're not going to see much health benefits by doing more. But the desk person will see enormous benefits from doing even 30 minutes or an hour a day. They'll see a massive change in their health. Humans just aren't meant to be sedentary. We don't thrive well in a sedentary environment. All right, next question. Jason, for the average person looking to maximize gains while ensuring good health, do you think that there is a place for any sort of high intensity conditioning, or would any recovery / time spent on intervals such be better spent lifting? Seems like they would provide similar benefits, seeing how your heart is working during both, depending on how the weight training is conducted, while LISS obviously provides separate benefits that wouldn't be made redundant with weight training. You know what? I'm going to agree with what Eric Helms on YouTube said a few years back. He doesn't believe that interval style training offers any benefits for people who already do what he called hypertrophy race training. And he's probably right to some extent. It gives you similar types of conditioning, but the weight training grows more muscle mass. Better for you overall. GPP work has its own place. So, I mean, GBP work would be fine, but the GPP work itself would replace most of the benefits of interval training outside of the sport-specific training for interval work, meaning you can do interval training that's very sport-specific to something you do, such as uptime in a boxing ring or a fighting match, things like that. You could do intervals based around that. For sport-specific reasons. But no, I mean, honestly, a lot of the conditioning people are wanting from their high-intensity stuff could actually be sorted completely with high-rep squats. And you're going to get a lot more out of it, because what we're finding is that HIIT cardio doesn't build the muscle that we thought it did. The latest studies they've looked at it, it doesn't build muscle as well as they thought it did previously. So yeah, you would probably get more in terms of just health benefits, again, barring specific sport-specific endeavors by weight training and then doing lower intensity cardio. You're going to get a wider set of health benefits and a wider set of athletic benefits from doing that for most people. Again, depending upon your specifics. People who have sport-specific needs could do others. And if you're just looking for general fitness, you could even avoid the really high rep weight training and do GBP work in place of that and in place of your interval training, and focus upon just the strength aspects of your lifting and then LISS cardio, and that would probably be your most complete overall fitness for most people. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. But yeah, generally speaking, most of the health benefits, if not all of the health benefits that come from doing higher intensity interval style training or conditioning work, seems to overlap completely with this high rep leg work for lifting, or even full body work as far as that goes. And Eric Helms pointed that out years ago and said that's one reason he's not really, he wasn't at the time at least, I don't know if his stance has changed, he's not really an advocate of his style training. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.